Welcome back, darlings, to the podcast Life Looks Different Now. I'm your host, Slandy Noel. In this podcast, we focus on reading one chapter from the Bible every week, doing our best to decipher the Word of God, learning its rules, its laws, its principles, and apply them to our daily lives. Last week, we read Genesis chapter 25. And from reading Genesis chapter 25, we learned that Abraham remarried a woman named Keturah and had many sons. But Abraham did not want those sons to interfere with his inheritance for Isaac, his promised child with Sarah. So he sent his wife Keturah and all of the children, all the sons that she had birthed him away, giving them gifts, but nevertheless he sent them away. We also learned that Abraham died in this chapter after living a very long life. We did learn that Isaac was blessed. However, him and his wife Rebecca couldn't have children because Rebecca was barren. But Isaac prayed to God, and God opened Rebecca's womb, and Rebecca got pregnant with twins. But the pregnancy was very difficult. Rebecca couldn't handle the pain. She went to God, and God told her that within her wombs were two nations. That is why the pregnancy was so difficult. The twins were fighting one another. Then God told her that the elder twin will be serving the younger twin. And then we learned that Rebecca gave birth to the twins. The twins grew up. The oldest twin, Esau, was favored by Isaac, but the younger twin, Jacob, was favored by Rebecca. We also learned that Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of stew. Now, this week, we are going to read Genesis chapter 26. Let's see what lesson Genesis chapter 26 holds for us this week. Now, before I go ahead to reading the chapter, I have a favor to ask you. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We need your support for this channel to grow. As you and I want to learn the Word of God, others want to do the same. So give them the opportunity to learn as well by sharing the channel with them. Thank you in advance for your support. Now let's get on to reading Genesis chapter 26. God's promise to Isaac. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to you, your offspring, all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister." For he feared to say, "my wife," thinking lest the men of the place should kill me because of Rebecca, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there for a very long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife. So Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Behold, she is your wife. How then could you say she is my sister?" Isaac said to him, "Because I thought, lest I die because of her." Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the people might easily have laid with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely put to death." And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. And he had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servant had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servant dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his advisor, and Philistine, the commander of his army, and Phicol, the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" They said, "We see plainly that the Lord has been with you." So we said, "Let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us. And let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord." So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. And in the morning they rose and early and exchanged oaths. And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water here." He called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, to be his wife, and Bathsheba, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. Now, in Genesis chapter 26, we are learning that God renewed the covenant that he had made with Abraham with Isaac. The chapter opens with letting us know that there was a famine in the land of Canaan where Isaac lived. But God went to Isaac and told him not to travel to Egypt for any resources. God told him to stay in the land of Canaan, the land that God had promised to Abraham, Isaac's father. Now remember in the previous chapter, in Genesis chapter 25, that Isaac died. And God had made a covenant with Isaac in Genesis chapter 12 that he will be blessing him, that he will be giving the whole land of Canaan to Abraham, even though Abraham did not even have children yet. Abraham was old, and he had a wife, but his wife was barren. His wife Sarah was barren. But God gave Abraham a covenant and told Abraham to walk before him blameless, to not go astray, to not go out of his way to disobey God, to follow God's rules, because God wanted to make sure that he built that covenant between himself and Abraham. Because God told Abraham, under that covenant, every single nation on the planet, every single person on this planet will be blessed due to that covenant. And we learn here that God, although God made the covenant with Abraham, God still went to Isaac to talk to Isaac and let Isaac know that he will be blessing him. So God told him, don't go to Egypt, because remember, there was a famine before in this land, and Abraham at the time went to Egypt looking for resources, and the Pharaoh took his wife, Sarah, as his own, because Abraham had told the Pharaoh that Sarah was only his sister. So God is making sure that there won't be any more misunderstanding. There won't be any more, going astray from his plan. God made it very clear to Isaac here, stay in the land where I've already promised to your father Abraham. Walk before me. Do what I'm asking you to do. I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to bless your descendants. And I'm going to give them this land here. And God promised to establish the oath he swore to Abraham to multiply Isaac's offspring as the stars of the heaven. And God is really letting Isaac know, this is what I'm going to do here. There will be many nations coming after you. Your descendants will own all these lands you see here. And I'm going to do it because your father Abraham obeyed me and kept my commandments, kept my laws. And now God is asking the same thing of Isaac. So the next thing we learn is that Isaac settled in Gerar. The men who lived there noticed Rebekah, because we know that Rebekah is a very attractive woman. Now, Rebekah is an older woman at this point, a middle-aged woman at best, I'm sure, because we know that their children, Esau and Jacob, were already grown. They were already adults. So if they were already adults, that tells me that Rebekah was older. She was not a 20-year-old. She was not a 30-year-old. It will tell us that, Rebekah must be in her 50s at that point. Yet, because she was a very attractive woman, just like her mother-in-law, Sarah was, Isaac became fearful for his own well-being. When he settled in Gerar, he became fearful. So he lied about his wife, Rebekah, being his wife. So when the men started asking about this attractive woman that he's traveling with, he simply said she is his sister, because he feared for his life. Now we have to remember, Isaac's father, Abraham, did exactly the same thing before. Isaac's father Abraham lied about Sarah being his sister. When they were asking about, and he claimed that Sarah was only his sister, although it was half truth because she was his half sister, but she was also his wife. But Abraham was trying to protect himself and fear for his own life. He lied. And we see that his son is repeating the same pattern. Remember how we talked before about this? Like, children learn from their parents. We learn from our parents. It's not necessarily what our parents are telling us to do, but it's what they are doing themselves. We learn from their patterns. We learn from their behaviors. We learn here that Isaac learned to follow God's rules because of his father Abraham. So he picked up this wonderful habit. He picked up on this great blessing because his father had taught him to believe in God, to follow God's commandments, to respect God's laws. And we see that Isaac has been following that, right? But we also learning here that Isaac also learned to lie from his father, because his father also lied about, his wife being his sister. And here we see that Isaac did not trust God to protect him, to keep him safe. So when he moved to Gerar, which is also in Canaan, apparently it's a different city, these men saw how attractive his wife was. They wanted his wife. He was afraid for his own safety. He lied, claiming that she was his sister. But then we learned that the king Abimelech, who is the king of the Philistines, one morning or afternoon, wherever time, he looked out of a window and he noticed that Isaac was being playful with Rebecca. He was laughing with Rebecca, which tell us the way that he was being playful with her was a way that husband and wives are with one another. Maybe he was touching her, maybe a certain way, talking to her in a touchy way. And the king noticed and make note that that was not his sister, that Rebecca was indeed his wife. And the king called, Isaac. But we have, there's something here I noticed, because the chapter is letting us know that King Abimelech noticed. He was the king of the Philistine. But we don't know. It's unknown if that was the same king that Isaac's father Abraham lied to when he first moved into the area. Because remember, there was a king Abimelech who took Sarah, Isaac's mother, as his wife right before she got pregnant with Isaac. So we don't know if that's the same king, or if it's a second king who happened to have the same name. Who knows? We don't know. But we know that this king is the king of the Philistine, and he must have been a man of God, because the minute he noticed it, he brought it to Isaac's attention. He called on Isaac and he asked Isaac, why did Isaac lie about Rebecca being his sister instead of letting them know that she was his wife? Then we learned that the king Abimelech said to Isaac, you could have brought a curse upon my nation. Had any of these men take your wife and lay with her, she's your wife, man. You could have brought all of this unto us. It goes to show you how women truly did not have any autonomy. So any man who find you attractive could just take you without your consent. Because we're learning here that, again, Isaac did not fail to protect his wife in that sense, because his wife could have been taken away from him. She could have been married off to some other man. She could have been, another man could have taken advantage of her and lay with her and have their way with her, because she was his sister, and that, any man could have just taken her as a concubine or as a wife. He failed to protect his wife, just like his father before him, Abraham, failed to protect Sarah in that regard. And the king discovered it, and the king brought it towards his attention, and the king told him, we didn't deserve this. We don't ask for that kind of curse. And that's when we learned that Isaac admitted to having lied because he was afraid for his own life. He didn't want to get killed, so he lied. And there the king made a decree, made it very clear that no man in the city can touch Isaac and his wife Rebecca. So at that point, they were safe. They were safe. And then we learned that God blessed Isaac and blessed his land. And Isaac, within that first year, reaped a great harvest in the land of the Philistine. And they became very envious of him because they're seeing that this man is flourishing. This man is becoming wealthier and wealthier. He's getting more servants. He's getting more flocks. He's getting, all of these, wealth in their land. They became envious of him. They did not like him. They're jealous of him. And the King Abimelech, commended that Isaac moved away from their city because they were so jealous. Jealousy is a very ugly, ugly trait. If you've ever been in contact with someone who is envious of you, who's jealous of you, flee from them. Flee. Don't stick around. Flee for your own safety. Because when people are envious and jealous, they are capable of doing just about anything. And we see here that King Abimelech, he knows that his whole people, everybody's noticing how, Isaac is really being blessed. He's amassing a huge amount of fortune in their land, and his people became envious, and he himself was jealous. But he was a godly man. He was a man who served God. Nevertheless, he just sent away Isaac. And then we learned that Isaac moved into the valley of Gerar. So he moved into a little bit further out in the valley where his father had lived before. But remember, Abraham also had dug many wells in that area, wells where they can get water, so their herds, their flocks can get water, and they can get clean water, and their people can continue to flourish. But we're learning that the Philistines have put dirt in those, well. And there again, Isaac moved into the valley of Gerar, and he went back and he dug the well that his father had dug before him. He went back and he dug this well and looking for water. He found water, but the local herdsmen became very envious of him, very envious, and got upset. So Isaac's herdsmen and the local herdsmen were in conflict, constantly fighting over these wells, and they took over the wells. And apparently, they felt like it should be their wells, so they took over the well. And again, we learned that Isaac went back and dug another well. And the herdsmen did exactly the same thing. They went back and they started conflict, between Isaac's herdsmen and the local herdsmen. They started fighting over it again. And we learned it once more. Isaac moved and dug a different well. And when they stopped and did not give them any more problems over this well, they decided to call this well Beersheba. So he moved to Beersheba, where the Lord, after he dug this well, the Lord appeared to him. He had moved to Beersheba. The Lord appeared to him and reminded him of the promise, the blessing, the covenant that God had with Isaac's father, Abraham. And Isaac dug another well there, and things were flourishing, things were going well, and God renewed this covenant with Isaac. It goes to show you that we cannot inherit, a blessing if we ourselves are not willing to accept it. You see, although God had given this covenant to Abraham, had Isaac decided to go against it, had Isaac decided to reject this covenant, had Isaac decided to disobey God, and remember, part of the covenant is also by circumcising all the male in the Abrahamic lineage. Had Isaac decided that, I don't have to listen to this, I can do my own thing, he would have been rejecting the covenant that God had made with Abraham. So it's great to see here that God went to Isaac and renewed the covenant and told Isaac, you are chosen to carry out this covenant. And Isaac accepted the covenant. You see, so we cannot just inherit something, just like we cannot inherit, Jesus Christ. As Christians, we ourselves have to make the decision to follow Christ. Just because your mom and your dad are Christians, just because you're born in Christianity, doesn't necessarily make you a Christian. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are saved. You have to be the person to choose to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And that is the only way for you to be saved. So here we seeing it where God is, not forcing the covenant down Isaac's throat. He just went to Isaac and have a conversation and renewed that oath, renewed that covenant. Right? And Isaac accepted it. And Isaac chose to follow God. He chose to make, the Holy One, the Almighty, the Lord Almighty, Jehovah, right, to be his Lord. That was his choice. And of course, Isaac, God blessed him tremendously. Tremendously. This man became wealthier, so much so that no one liked him. You see, so he amassed so much wealth. But when King Abimelech and his people recognized how blessed Isaac was and how highly favored, how God Almighty had chosen this man, had, favored this man, they decided to go to him and propose a covenant between their people, the Philistine, and Isaac. Because, remember, those were the same men, the same group of people who did not like Isaac because Isaac had so much wealth. They didn't even want to deal with him anymore. They sent him away. But now that they noticed that, wait a minute, it didn't matter what they did. Isaac continued on living his best life. Nothing they were going to do was going to stop Isaac, because Isaac was highly favored. So Isaac continued on building more wealth. And once they recognized that, right, they decided to go and make a covenant, a peaceful covenant, with Isaac. And it goes to show you how your enemy, the people who hate you, the people who don't want to deal with you, the people who are so jealous and envious of you, when they see you thriving, oftentimes people don't know how much you've gone through, how much pain you have to endure to get to where you are in life. But once they see you flourishing and you are thriving and you are, gaining wealth, or you are having this wonderful marriage, or you're having this wonderful relationship and things are working out for you, they become envious. But when they see that whatever they do to try to trick you, to push you away, to put you, and when they see all their schemes don't work out, they have no choice but to admire you. They have no choice but to come to you and ask for your blessing and ask to have a relationship with you. Because when they notice they have no power over you, whatever they're going to do, God will continue on blessing you. They'll come and ask you to be their friends, to pray for them. That's exactly what King Abimelech just did here. Him and his people hated Isaac. They didn't want to deal with him because they were jealous he had too much wealth. But here they are. They came to have a covenant, to propose a covenant. And Isaac said to them, well, you have sent me away. Why would you need a covenant with me? And then that's when they admitted that, well, we noticed that you are highly favored. So we want peace with you. You see, we didn't harm you. We just simply sent you away. So we want to live in harmony. We want to live in peace. We want to do business together. And Isaac accepted their proposal. And Isaac, through a huge feast to celebrate this new exchange of oaths, promising that they will not harm one another. They celebrated one another, they celebrate each other. Then the chapter concluded with letting us know that Esau, one of Isaac and Rebekah's twins, the oldest born, Esau, married two Hittite women, Judith and Basemeth. He married two Hittite women, women who are not following God, women who are pagan, women who are out there in the world, right? But these are the women he decided to marry. And listen here, Esau was such a man's man, right? Like his father Isaac loves him because he's a man's man, because he's a hunter, because he's mighty, he's big. In his father's eyes, he's the apple of the father's eyes. He can do no wrong. And here's this man really going against his father and his grandfather's Lord's, Almighty, going against the values and that has been installed in him, that has been taught to him, the standards that has been taught to him. He went against all of that, disobeyed all of that. Because remember, when Abraham wanted Isaac to get married, he did not take a woman in that area. He did not marry Isaac off to one of these women. In fact, he sent his loyal servant to go back to his father's home to find, his son Isaac a wife, because Abraham understood that a woman has huge influence on her husband. And he wanted to make sure that whoever Isaac was married to is a woman who is a woman of God, is a woman who is, virtuous woman, a woman who is respectable, a woman who knows herself, a woman who respects herself, her husband, respect her husband, obey her husband, right? A woman who serves God, which is very important. But although Isaac and Rebekah have demonstrated how to choose a partner, they have demonstrated how their son's supposed to follow God and God's rules and laws, Esau rejected all of these teachings and went ahead and married not one, but two of these women in that area. He decided to be a polygamist and married two of these women. And they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. They make life very difficult for their in-laws. And that's the way the chapter ended, letting us know that, you see, Esau is a problem child. Esau does not listen. Esau is big and he feels like, I'm important. I don't need to listen to anybody's commitments. I'm going to do whatever I want. He's not a young man who is, he's not humble. And there are consequences to these actions. And that's the way the chapter ended, with letting us know that Isaac and Rebekah's lives have been made difficult, bitter, terrible by these two women. Now we know, being married and sometimes in-laws can be very difficult. But, to hear that it was the women who made it very difficult for their in-laws, my goodness, just terrible. Just goes to show you that these women were out of control. They were not taught, the laws of the Most High. They had a whole different standard. They have a whole different way of living. And so they did their own thing. And these are the women Esau chose. So there's so many things to learn this week, from this chapter. It's really, first I recognize that, God is letting us know that, oftentimes God can put you in a position, can put you in a place for a reason. Just like God had placed Isaac in this position to stay in Canaan, not to move and not to go to Egypt, not to go. God can really put it in your heart. There are times when things get very difficult and we may become very frightful and we feel like we have to do something. We have to move. We have to do this. But oftentimes God wants us to be where we are, to be still and know that He is God, to allow Him to take over, because He will always provide of all our needs. He is Jehovah Jireh. He will always provide. And that, God has demonstrated that to, Isaac, by letting him know, be still, stay where you're at. I'm going to take care of you. And God blessed him tremendously with so much wealth, so much so that the people in that land become so envious of him and put him away. And we also learned that, Isaac also lied in regards to his wife being afraid, because there are times when, even though we are believers, we trust God, we love God, there are times when we still falter, we still fall short. And again, the chapter is showing us that even Isaac fell short. Even Isaac got fearful, just like his father before him did, and made a mistake. And we also learned that, Isaac was highly favored, and God chose, him out of all of Abraham's son to carry out this covenant. However, God was not just going to give it to him like that unless, Isaac had agreed to certain terms. Isaac, when God came to Isaac to renew this covenant, Isaac was open and ready, and he wanted it as well. And that's why God blessed him so tremendously. Just like his father before him, he's an obedient man. And he wants to, follow God's commandments, which is really wonderful. And then we learn, lastly, that, when you marry certain type of people, they can come and make your life extremely difficult and make, everything and your family's life arduous. Folks like that, there are some people who have that ability. They're just difficult people. And so we have to be very careful as to the type of people we choose to surround ourselves with and to do life with. So I hope you learned something new this week as well, darling. And please remember to leave questions and concerns, or if there's anything that I missed that you may know about. I want to hear your thoughts and I need your feedback. And of course, remember to share the channel with others and give a thumbs up, liking at the end of the video. Thank you so much for tuning in this week for this episode. I hope you will have a wonderful week. I am praying for you. I am thinking of you. Until next time, darlings, bisous.